for you. Major subject matter today is, of course, allergies. Are you really allergic to what they say you're allergic to? We're going to also delve into the mainstream minute, and I want to help you all kind of look at how you can decipher some of these online news messages that they're sending us. And we have to be able to decipher through these things and be able to come to a place of comfort so that we won't be overwhelmed and start to act in fear. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Ask God for His grace for us all, to have an open mind, to anticipate gaining some news that you can use, that you can apply to your everyday life, and that we can grow in our understanding and then apply these changes so that we can improve our health, whether we're on a health journey or a health, I call it either a health journey or a health maintenance. So if you have a problem and you're trying to heal, or if you have good health and you want to maintain it, it all takes knowledge and it all takes much work. Also ask that God give me the ability to remove my ego and remove my impediment so I may be a vessel for you to gain the type of information that can change your life. So let's go ahead and get started with the mainstream minute we're going to talk about today, and then we're going to get into these allergies. There will be a little bit of scientific information, so I hope you're all ready for that today. So let's get right into it. So I was looking at some of the mainstream media earlier this week, and I came across this article. So of course, the first thing is that they put a picture of raw milk up here. I mean, raw milk cheese, right? That's a company in France that does milk, makes cheese from milk that has not been pasteurized or homogenized. And so this is, based on some other information over the last few weeks, because as I said in some of my other broadcasts, some of these governments do not want us to have access to the type of food that keeps us healthy. It will destroy a pharmaceutical industry that makes a lot of money. So more eel and Listeria E. coli outbreaks linked to raw milk cheese. And so when you go down into this article, they're talking about 15 children and 1 adult. 15 children and 1 adult have fallen ill in an E. coli outbreak in France linked to cheese made with unpasteurized milk. Well, when they go on and on, I mean, they could talk about however bad they think it is or whatever the case may be. But the reality is that if you were to do a research or just a quick search on what is the population of France, the one that I did said it was 66.99 million people in that country. So anybody with a little bit of math skill can do the math. That is far, far, far below 1%, which means that it's not even statistically significant. And to put that into somewhat of a, kind of an analogy that we can maybe make a little sense of it, of how much it isn't statistically significant, would be if somebody, let's say, had a child, and that child is in a class of 30, 35, 40 children. And on the day that grades come out of those, let's say 39 children, 38 passed, 38 made all A's on their test or B's. And then there was 1 child that failed all of the tests, all of the work, and then failed the class, right? And then that parent would run in, the parent whose child failed would come into class or, come to a meeting and say, this teacher is horrible because my child failed. I'm sure that all of the other parents, the other 38 parents, would look at that parent and say, something is really wrong with you, because that doesn't even make any sense, that you would think that because your child failed, that the teacher is the problem when all the rest of the children did well. And so that is the significance of this study. If we're talking about 15 people in a country with 67 million people, that's not even relevant. That's definitely not something that you would need to start going after a company for. I mean, even if there was Listeria or E. coli in 15 people, that could be, you know, they could do the right type of science and figure out where the problem is. But to put type of information in the media like this, it really shows that there's propaganda against raw milk, which also should tell you that if there's propaganda against it, it's probably good for you, because this media is owned by the corporations. Let's make no mistake about it. You're not getting news when you go to these places. Most of the time you're getting propaganda. And so that's my assessment of this article, and I wanted to give that to you because, of course, last week I discussed when people that are not familiar with medical terminology, medical studies, and then the statistical analysis of these medical studies, a lot of times you can be fooled when you go into medical literature. And so this was just an example that I wanted to use in comparison to what we were discussing last week, in that if you don't know how to go into these type of studies and really extract the information and look at it for what it is, sometimes the wool can be pulled over your eyes, and sometimes people can really make you fearful about things that you really shouldn't be fearful about. There should be nobody that has any fear when 15 people out of almost 70 million have a problem. That's it really, like the child who failed, it's almost irrelevant. It's probably something that can be fixed very simply, but to try to paint a negative picture about raw milk and raw milk products is propaganda. So y'all keep tuned and watch some of these stories that are out there about raw milk, and maybe you'll be able to see through some of this stuff yourself. I don't know. The next aspect of dealing with allergies, of course, is dealing with a little bit of science, y'all. So we're going to have to go into the science book and look at a few things. The first thing that I really wanted to point to, of course, we're talking about the lymph and immune system, right, are the aspects of the body that are tied to the immune system but aren't really considered lymph organs, right? So there is a picture of the whole lymph system. So all of that is directly tied to your immune system. And then these things over here are indirectly tied to your immune system. So you got your tear glands that help remove things from the eye. You got your mouth and the throat, that what you can spit when you make saliva. Some of that can kill some foreign things. Respiratory, that's why we cough. We have a lot of immune cells in our respiratory section. We'll look at that in a minute. Your stomach has very powerful hydrochloric acid, and that's why it's usually very difficult if you swallow anything that it can live if it's a type of infection. Small intestines, they have some ability, mostly, as it says right there, from the pancreatic juices, but you see it says up there, small intestine, strong digestive enzymes. No, the strong digestive enzymes are in the stomach. When the stomach empties into the small intestine, which you see right there, that little section right there is the stomach emptying into the small intestine. That's the pylorus, right where my finger is. Once food is emptied out of the stomach into the intestines, the pancreas is putting other enzymes in there if it still needs to be broken down. But the other thing that it puts in there is bicarbonate to start decreasing the strength of the acid. So when you get into the small intestines, the strong digestive enzymes are being diluted. The pancreas will release some stuff, but it's not nearly as acidic as what's in the stomach. But that is another form of destruction of things that can infect the body. Of course, genitourinary, we're talking about urinating and keeping your urethra clean. Large intestines, we empty out a lot of waste, so that doesn't maintain. And then the biggest barrier that we have all over the body for our immune system is the skin. The skin keeps things out, and if something breaks the skin, breaks the barrier of the skin, then you automatically have a reaction that occurs, which we will look at very specifically in a few seconds, okay? But I wanted to just mention the lymph system. So this lymph system is what? is the waste removal system of the body, as well as it is part of the immune system because it has not only the lymph nodes, which all these little knots that you see are lymph nodes. These are the lymph vessels that run alongside of the veins. So as you are moving, walking, doing whatever you do every day, as your blood is moving back towards, going towards the heart, that's the same flow that all of the waste material has in the body to go back towards the heart to be what? Pumped into the areas, the liver, which sits over here, that cleanses a lot of the toxins. And then you have a spleen, which is what is being shown right there. Spleen is looking at all the blood cells, making sure they're all correct. If they're not, they get sent into lymph nodes so that they all can be taken back and we remove what we need and we get rid of what we don't need. And so some of these things are removed through defecation, and some of it is removed through other ways that we remove waste, which sometimes can be pimples. And we're talking about mucus in our last program. This is the system by which the body makes mucus, because once the lymph system gets to a place where things can be released, like in the sinuses. One thing we didn't point out over here in the mouth and throat is also your sinuses. Your sinuses can be in this area here, is in the forehead, be under both eyes, and then you got one behind the nose. All of those are considered our sinuses. And of course, that's going to be a main aspect of what we're going to talk about, because today's topic is about allergies, correct? So the sinuses play a huge role in that, because a lot of people drain, their nose is draining, they're blowing their nose, they got a headache, or whatever else they may have, and that's because the sinuses are part of the removal of waste. And so when you blow your nose and you have all that mucus, that is one of the avenues by which some of the dead cells and some of the cells that have attacked whatever the problem is are eliminated out of their body. Okay, so I hope that makes sense to those of you who are checking it out, and of course you can ask me any questions if it's not. So let's go to this right here, because this is another aspect. This picture is not very big. But let me kind of get close, because I really want you all to see this. So they're the cells of the immune system. And if you notice up there at the top, it says stem cell. So what is a stem cell? A stem cell is a cell that is not differentiated. So that means that stem cell could wind up being a liver cell, could be a heart cell, could be a brain cell, could be a kidney cell. That stem cell can be anything in the entire human body. But once it gets down to the next phase, which is the lymphoid stem cell or the myeloid progenitor, you see that it can go down into what? Plasma cell, memory cell, T cell. That's a H cell, and that's a TC cell. Just two. I don't want you all to get really deep into this, but those are the different type of T cells, which means your immune cells. These over here are your B cells, and that's your natural killer cell. You go over here to the myeloid progenitor, and we're talking about all your white blood cells. Okay, so these are the two different aspects of immune cells in the body. But what is happening to produce this? A stem cell. So anytime you have any new cells in your immune system, it came from a stem cell. Okay, I hope that makes sense, because in order to produce stem cells, there are things that we can do in order to make our body correct. Okay, so those are the cells that fight anything that comes into the body that's not supposed to be there. And then we have a system of messengers. All right, so if you see there, you say the messengers of pain. Direct tissue damage stimulates pain fibers and local inflammatory mediators. So once something has entered the skin, as you see right there, they got like a little needle or something poking into the skin, and it says bradykinin, prostaglandin, cytokines. That includes histamine. That includes like your immunoglobulins, or your not your immunoglobulins, I'm sorry, I meant interferons. And I don't want to get too far into the science, but just understand that there are a lot of little mediators that we have in our bodies that are like messengers. So a good way, maybe as an analogy to look at this would be, let's just use an example like we were, driving around a city and there's a lot of traffic, but there still is room for us to move, but it's kind of congested, right? So if you can imagine that you have people on little scooters that move kind of fast, and then you have people in cars that can move kind of fast, and then you have buses, and then you have big trucks like the 18-wheelers. Well, it's obvious that the big trucks are going to be moving a little slower. The buses are probably going to be moving a little faster than the truck, but they're going to be moving pretty slow. The cars are going to be faster, but the guys on the little motorcycles and the mopeds, they're like zipping in and out of everybody, right? So when we come to these little bradykinin, prostaglandins, cytokines are going to be like your interferons and some of the other substances. Histamine, TNF is tumor necrosis factor, that's another messenger. All these things are very, very small. So they're running in between cells and running around in the cell to message, hey, we have a problem. Okay? And then when it's time for the body to react, these little messengers will move from cell to cell, and eventually some of that information will get to the brain because some of it's going to go into the bloodstream to let the brain know, hey, we have a problem, right? The pain sensation is the first thing that lets the brain know that there's a problem, so it can react and start sending things. See that picture right there? My little hand right there moving is the brain, so it's showing you the pain fiber going to the brain. What is it telling the brain? We need some help down here. So this is a local reaction that's going on with all these little messengers, but there's also a major improvement of blood flow to this area, and then you get swelling. You get swelling and you get the redness, and that is all the extra fluid and all the cells that we just finished talking about. These here are being released into the tissues in order for them to do their job. So see, when you go to a doctor and the doctor says you have allergies, sometimes that's not necessarily the truth. You may not necessarily be allergic to something. What you are doing is the proper program of getting this stuff out of you. Okay? So here's just another picture. We're talking about all of those little small things that I'm talking about, the histamine, the bradykinin, all of those interferons. They communicate with all these different type of cells. They tell them, basically, it's like, hey, look here. We have a problem. It's a foreign body. We have a problem. It's a virus. We have a problem. It's a bacteria. These little ones tell these bigger cells, and these bigger cells, the macrophage, the lymphocyte, the granulocyte, all part of the immune system, all have the ability to kill anything and everything that comes in the body. And so when you go to your doctor and your nose is running, what is the purpose of your nose running? Your nose is running because there's something that your body is trying to clean out, right? So you're blowing your nose, it's running, and you are literally working on cleansing the body and getting some things out of the body that the body doesn't want. But then what do you do when you go to a doctor? What do you do when you go to a pharmacy? You're looking for something to stop your nose from running, right? You go and you're sneezing. What are these so-called allergic symptoms? Well, a runny eye. We just finished looking at this picture over here, right? It says that the lacrimal gland, the tear glands, the lacrimal gland that's in the eye, tear fluid contains an antibacterial enzyme, lysozyme, that flushes across the eyeball with each blink. And so when your eyes are itchy and your eyes are running, right, and you're doing like this, and you look in the corner and you see like some crust in your eyes, your body has just cleaned something out of your eye, cleaned something off your eye that potentially could have caused a problem. But it's better because your body is cleansing. I hope that makes sense. And it's the same thing with all of these systems. When your nose runs, it's cleaning. That's mucus, collecting things that the body doesn't want. You blow and you get rid of it. So you through the travel mechanism of mucus, have relieved the body of something that the body doesn't want in it. So the sneeze is what? It's a force of air that's coming through the sinuses and the upper airways to clean. Same process as the runny nose. And then the cough is coming out of the lungs, right? So again, we're looking at the systems that we're talking about are part of the immune system, right? Respiratory tract, it says nostril hairs trap airborne particles. Mucus and cilia in lining of nose and trachea trap and remove dust, microorganisms and debris. So that's what your lungs are doing. There is a cleansing process that we do every day. And so in the nose, you have a cleansing process where you blow your nose. In the mouth, you have a cleansing process which you can spit. In your eyes, there's a cleansing process through the tear ducts. In the lungs, there's a cleansing process which is coughing. In the sinuses and the upper airways, there is sneezing. You have defecation. You have urination. You have skin where you can do pimples or you can have rashes. Or all of these things are the processes of the body that cleanse. And so when you go to a physician and they tell you something like, well, you have allergy symptoms, and then they want to do a test and they test you and they say that you're allergic to this and you're allergic to that. Well, let's just consider something kind of shortly here. Have you all ever considered that pollen is the source of life on the planet? There wouldn't be a plant. There couldn't be a piece of food that is produced without pollen. That's a scientific reality. Pollen is the sexual aspect of plants. So bees, right, will fly, touch one flower, and then they go touch the other flower. And that's how the process of producing a plant, producing a food, producing whatever it is that plant, maybe just a beautiful flower, but that has to be produced through the process of pollen. So you have to consider that everything on the planet Earth lives because of pollen. Because if there wasn't food, if there weren't plants, no oxygen, all life would cease to exist. That's how important pollen is. Now, why would God make you allergic to pollen? See, most people are not allergic to pollen. Most people just are doing so many things that are wrong. Not drinking enough water, not eating the right type of foods, not getting enough rest, not fasting and detoxifying their body. So your body is already overloaded with a lot of toxins. And then you go out into the atmosphere and you may get a lot of pollen in your system, or you may get a lot of whatever is out in the air. There can be viruses, there can be germs, there can be dust, it can be so many things out there. But on a regular basis, your body has the ability to rid itself of all of that. That's what the sneezing is. That's what the coughing is. That's what the runny eye is. That's what the runny nose is. All of those are cleansing and keeping this whole system intact. Because this is where you breathe down into the lung. So there's a protection mechanism for all of this, but there's also a protect mechanism in the lung. What? If something gets down in there, you cough and you try to get it out. So this whole idea of allergies is really it's a lack of understanding, but it's overemphasized because there's not enough particular attention to what the body is really doing. If you go to a doctor and your eyes are running and you're sneezing, your nose is running and you're coughing a lot, why would you want to get a pill to stop all that from happening when I just finished telling you that all that is happening because the body's going through the cleansing process? So that is something that we have to consider, is that we have been inundated with information all of our lives, most of us through our parents mostly, but then once you leave the household of your parents, you go out into the world, everybody's talking about taking something for a problem, taking something because this is happening, taking something because that's happening, instead of trying to understand and grow in knowledge of what the body is trying to do. And then that way you can put things in a proper perspective. You can let the body do what it's made to do and then benefit you in the way that you can grow in empowering yourself to understand what your body is communicating to you. It's very important. And so I want to tell a quick story, and then I want to get into a little more of why we're having such issues with so-called allergies. So one of the things that is really, I think, important for us to consider is that indigenous societies all over this world have been eating wheat for probably millions, and probably longer than that. As long as we've been on this planet, which has been studied, has been millions and millions of years, there have been a diet that includes wheat. But yet, this whole gluten thing that you see in the stores now, where everybody's talking about gluten is bad, and people shouldn't eat gluten foods, and people are gluten sensitive, and all these type of things, all of these code words and these buzzwords. It is not anything pure. And another example would be somebody called me this week and told me that they were listening. Actually, their wife was listening to a program where they were talking about lectins are bad. Lectins, lectins, which are part of the cell membrane of a lot of different cells. These are problems that nobody has ever heard of before. And so, I'll tell a quick story. My wife, when we were courting, one of the initial conversations that we had, she told me, she said, I'm allergic to strawberries, I'm allergic to peaches, I'm allergic to nectarines, I'm allergic to oranges, I'm allergic to strawberries. She just went down this list of all these foods. And so my response to her was, why would God make you allergic to some of the best foods on the planet Earth? Does that really sound like something that God would do to you? Make you allergic to that? Make a long story short, I purchased some organic fruit of every fruit classification that she said that she couldn't eat. And now, this is not, any basic information I'm giving you. I have done research on different grocery stores for years. I will go in one grocery store, and if they say that they have something organic, I'll buy that. Let's say like a green bell pepper. That was the first experiment I ever did. I bought a green bell pepper from Whole Foods that was supposedly organic, and then I went to Kroger and bought one that was supposed to be organic, and I think I went to Walmart or something like that, and I put all three of them on the counter and just left them there to see which one rotted faster. And I also bought some that were conventional, meaning they had pesticides, herbicides, all that kind of stuff on it. And that's how I came to a determination which one of those grocery stores was selling the most quality food. And I would suggest that you do the same thing. When you start to address what are the best foods that you eat and what is the best place for you to get the organic food that serves you the nutrition that you need. Of course, growing our own food is always going to be the best. But until then, while you're still shopping, you have to figure out which store is the best by doing your experimentation. So that was something that I had been doing for years at that point. So I bought organic food for her. And she ate every single one of those foods that she was supposedly allergic to and had no problems. None whatsoever. So it wasn't the food that she was allergic to. She has a problem with the pesticides, the herbicides, and the chemical fertilizers that were in those foods, and that's why she was having trouble. And when I tell you trouble, my wife has some serious issues if she has food that is not organic. She gets a serious outbreak that is not something that you can play with. And so I just wanted to show you a couple of articles that is verifying what I'm talking about, and that is the FDA confirms PFAS chemicals are in the U.S. food supply. Now, I'm sure some people are saying, what is PFAS? Well, it's a long chemical name, which I don't necessarily think is necessary. But the point is that they are doing studies and showing that a lot of these chemicals that we're using in the processing of food and in the everyday growing of food as well is being found in the food. So you see that PFAS is a family of nearly 5,000 synthetic chemicals, synthetic meaning man-made, that are extremely persistent in the environment and in our bodies. It's short for perfluoroalkyl or polyfluoroalkyl substances, and includes chemicals known as PFOS, PFOA, and Gen X, and called forever chemicals. Now, what is the thing of why they're calling it a forever chemical? Well, every chemical that can be made by a human, they determine what the ability of that substance is to break down into the original substances that made it, right? Because there's nothing that a human can make unless they go into something from the earth extract something from the earth and then start putting things together, and then they produce whatever it is, right? So I mean, think about it: Fabuloso, bleach, Clorox, ammonia. All these things are made by humans. Those are not natural chemicals from the earth, but all of them are made from natural chemicals of earth, and then they start mixing things together. So does that make sense? I hope. So when you do that type of a chemical, it has a breakdown reality. So we go and we study it and we say, okay, this chemical will break down, and we call it a half-life. So its half-life will be 12 years. So let's just say this is not exact. I'm just using an example. Ammonia has a half-life of 12 years. So that means if you go and you take some ammonia and you spill some outside in your yard, it's going to take 12 years for that chemical to break down into half of the amount of substance that was spilled. And so there are some things like atomic and plutonium and things of that nature that take, I believe plutonium takes like millions of years or longer than that to break down. So these things get into the environment, and they're there for so long. And so that's what they mean by forever chemicals. Some of these chemicals, it takes a long time for them to break down. So if you get it in your body, you have to have the ability to extract it out of your body with the beautiful immune system, the liver, the spleen, the kidneys, and all the other organs I just finished talking about. Those organs have the ability to break it down and get it out of the body. When I say break it down, I don't mean like break it down like we were just talking about, like the half-life, but alter it and put it in a format where it can either be urinated or defecated or come out in one of the other ways that we just finished talking about, right? So that is why they're calling it forever chemicals, because of how long it takes it to break down in nature. But they also, in these articles, are coming from a mainstream perspective. When we're talking about looking at things from the perspective of how to eat to live, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad mentions in How to Eat to Live that everything in the body is made from the earth. So everything from the earth is in the body. So when you go to a periodic table and you look at all 118 of those different elements, those are in the body to different degrees. Of course, you don't need as much gold as you need salt. You don't need as much silver as you need oxygen. You don't need as much plutonium as you need calcium. So the things that you need a lot of course, are in high amounts in the body, and things you don't need a lot are in low amounts in the body. But all of those things are in the body to one degree or the other. So we have the ability, just like I said earlier, if you have to go to nature, you have to go to the earth to make everything that you can produce that's a man-made chemical, synthetic chemical, then you also have the ability in this human body to break that down back into the things that you need to do to get rid of it out of the body, or just break it down so that you can either use some of the stuff that's in it and get rid of what you don't need, or change it and rearrange it so that it can be eliminated out of our body through one of the systems that does the waste. Okay, so that was one article, and then another article, and I hope you all are looking at some of these online sites when they're talking about health. I don't know why that one's not coming up, but it was another one that's this one right here was supposed to be glycophosphate, which is there were some articles in the news this week about Roundup and it being linked to cancer, and they're starting to prove that what people have been saying for years is true, that it actually does cause cancer. And so here is what I was talking about earlier about, see, it says lectin induction of bacterial overgrowth, bacterial toxins, passage of dietary lectins through the barrier, autoimmunity against various tissue antigens. A lot of this information, they are not taking into consideration that in these tissues, in these cells, can be these chemicals. These chemicals get into these cells. And when a immune cell when one of these cells comes into the body and starts looking for something to take out, because these are always in the body, they're always moving around, they're in every tissue. Every single organ in the human body has immune cells that are specific to those cells. In your liver, you have immune cells. In the brain, you have immune cells. And so they'll be a different name in all those different organs, but they're all responsible for the same thing, and that is to manage that organ and make sure that anything that is wrong gets taken care of. All right, so those cells of the immune system are always checking. They're constant security guards all over the body. Now, these cells, when they go and they look for something in a cell, they're not going to go in here and say, oh, it's that little red dot right there. What the immune cell is going to do is look at this whole cell and say something is wrong with it, so it's going to attack the whole cell. So when these people start talking about autoimmunity against various tissue antigens, yes, the antigens are the things that's in it that's not appropriate. It's these chemicals that are winding up in our food. It's the chemicals that are in the air. It's the chemicals that are in a lot of the products that we use every day. So think about this. When you have a person who says they have allergies, right, and they're sneezing, they're coughing, eyes are runny, itchy, all of these different type of so-called allergy symptoms. I wonder how many people that have those type of symptoms take in consideration that every morning when you get up and you take a shower, there's some chemicals from the water that are absorbing in your skin. If you don't take the time to assess your soap, you may be putting soap on your body that has chemicals in it. There's more things absorbing into your body. You brush your teeth and you haven't taken the time to assess your toothpaste. So now you're swallowing some chemicals. You know, if women and or men, because these days some men are using makeup, but now you're putting makeup on and you're absorbing some of those chemicals. Stop on your way to work, get some coffee from wherever you get coffee from, or you get some food from a fast food restaurant because you're in a hurry and you need something quick. And you haven't assessed all the chemicals that are coming in through that. And then what about the chemicals that are being sprayed in the air every day in the chemtrails? And then you're going to eat again for lunch. And then you're going to eat again for dinner. The potential of allowing a large amount of chemicals, a large amount of toxins in the human body is paramount every day, because a lot of us have not taken in consideration all the things that I just mentioned. And how many of the chemicals that are in those different things, your shampoo, your soap, your toothpaste, your mouthwash, how many of these different chemicals have you researched to see what the effect on the body is going to be? You get in your car and you have the windows up and you have the air on, and you have, you know, one of those scented things in your car. Well, how much of that you're breathing in every day is affecting your sinuses, right? You have two sinuses here, as I said earlier. You have two sinuses here under the eyes, and you have a sinus behind the nose. These are called your frontal sinuses. These are your maxillary sinuses, and you have a sphenoid that's behind the nose. All of these are responsible for extracting things when we breathe. That's part of the system that extracts things. So that's the cleansing process. It also is something that it exudes snot and mucus because it has gathered some of the stuff out of what we're breathing. And so what effect do all of these different things have on the overall toxicity of your body? And so when you develop a so-called allergy symptom, you start trying to cleanse. Your eyes are watering, you're blowing your nose, you're spitting, you're coughing, you're sneezing, you're itching. Hey, the itching is a sign that the immune system is working. And all of those other symptoms that I just finished mentioning are the cleansing process. Why would you want that to stop? Why would you want to stop the cleansing process, meaning you are aborting getting things out of the body that the body doesn't want because you don't know how to understand what is being communicated to you? And every time you go to a doctor, they either give you a medicine increase the strength of it, give you a different type, or they put you on steroids. And what is a steroid? A steroid is a medication that stops these processes that we talked about earlier. Okay, these processes right here, direct tissue damage stimulates pain fibers. That pain fiber went to the brain sent down all those immune cells, we just talked about it, but the local inflammatory mediators, which is the bradykinin, the prostaglandins, the cytokines, the things that come from tissue injury, which is histamine, and all of these other things that we talked about, that is inhibited by steroids. When somebody gives you steroids, whether it's an inhaler or you blow it up in your nose, or you get a shot or you take the pill, it's shutting down your immune system. So now you're going to allow the immune system to be shut down so that things that we're trying to fight and keep out of the body now can come in the body, and now they have free range. So no, taking medications for allergies is not the right thing. The best thing that you should do to try to help yourself when it comes to allergies is to consider that you must detoxify your body. And the first way to detoxify is to allow the detoxifying organs and the detoxifying processes to do their job. So rather than take a pill, like a lot of people have allergy symptoms this time of year, what would be better than taking an allergy pill is to make up your mind that, let's say, today's Tuesday, my allergies seem to be bothering me. What I'm going to do on Friday is I'm going to do a fast. I'm going to drink enough water and do all the things that prepare my body for a fast, but then I'm going to allow myself to only put in good foods that give me the nutrition so that I can boost my body to be able to handle cleansing. So I did a program on fasting. You can check my YouTube or my YouTube or my Facebook channel for fasting, good or no. So check that out. That gives you some information on fasting. And that way you will allow your body to go through a cleansing process. And when you get finished with those allergy symptoms, then it's time for you to do that assessment that I finished talking about. It's time for you to sit down at the table. And that's where I can help a lot of people. That's part of one of the things that I do. I can come in your home. We can do it by video, where I look at all the things that you're putting on your body, in your body, spices that you're using, all of these different things, the certain type of foods that you're eating can be inundating your body with a lot of toxins, and then when your body starts trying to cleanse, somebody calls it an allergic reaction. Not always an allergic reaction. Sometimes it's a cleansing reaction. And in the story I just finished telling you about my wife, all of us have to listen to that and try to consider if we're not necessarily allergic to this specific food or this specific substance, but we may be allergic to something that is not even being measured, that is not even being considered by average doctors or average people, that maybe your body's reacting to the glycophosphate, maybe it's being reacting to the herbicide, maybe it's reacting to the pesticide, maybe it's reacting to the chemical fertilizers, maybe it's reacting because it's GMO food is so foreign to your body is trying to reject it. These are all possibilities, because when they do those injections or put the little pricks under your skin and try to figure out what you are allergic to, they never take in consideration what are the smaller chemicals, these chemicals that are man-made that can be in the food. And again, let's go back to this article. FDA does what? The FDA confirms. FDA confirms PFAS chemicals are in the U.S. food supply. I can promise you right now, there's not one study that I know of where you can go test for PFAS in your body. Now, they're probably going to be coming out soon because a lot of the companies are seeing these type of articles, and that's going to be a way that they can make more money, is to be able to test that. But up until today, up until probably recently, within the last few months or maybe a year, there's no test that you can do to test PFAS. So how would you know whether your body is reacting to PFAS or some of these type of chemicals when they do a test for strawberries and your study come back and says you're allergic to grass, or you're allergic to peanuts, or you're allergic to oranges, you're allergic to strawberries. How about if it's possible that you're allergic to these chemicals that are man-made, and that's in the strawberry? And so they're telling you you're allergic to the strawberry, but the strawberry just has these chemicals in it. Your body is really trying to extract these poisons out of you. So it's definitely something to consider. It's definitely something that everybody should want to learn, because, sinus issues and so-called allergy problems, they're not going away and they're not getting better. They're growing exponentially, and that whole market of medications is a billion-dollar industry within itself, allergy medicines, because so many people are taking them. So many people are afraid of allergies because of the connection to potential bad things happening. Of course, we should be concerned, but the average person doesn't have the type of allergy problems that's going to potentially cause you the real dangerous thing, which we call anaphylaxis, where you can, your throat swells up and you can't breathe. The typical person, that's a very small percentage. The typical person is not dealing with that type of allergy. The typical person is dealing with what I just talked about. You got your runny eyes, your stuffy nose, your throat may be a little itchy, and you're coughing and sneezing. Those type of symptoms are the cleansing process. And we start looking at it from the right perspective, we can put our body in a better state, then we will eliminate that. And I have helped many, many, many people eliminate allergies completely. And so I really don't know what happened today. I'm live. I don't see any comments, and I've only seen one person come on, so not sure exactly. But the last thing I wanted to say today is my book is finished. It's going to be edited probably over the next week, and I'm looking to release it on July 4th weekend. So put that pressure on myself, but it's time for it to come out. And of course, I will let all of you know how it's available. And it is just my testimony. It's my testimony of the book of How to Eat to Live and how it changed everything in what I do. And so I just kind of, give some accolades to the people that helped me along my travels. And I also discuss how that book changed my whole outlook in medicine and how my viewpoint is currently based on that book. So, I'm hoping that people enjoy it. I'm hoping that people read it. I'm hoping that people see where I'm coming from, and it helps them understand how to empower themselves and just to look at their health from a different perspective than we have typically looked at it, because of the way that we have been conditioned to look at it and the way that we have expectations of things not to be so great in the future. So look for that coming out July 4th weekend. I will, of course, update you if there are any delays. I've been actually paying attention to some people out here who are, writing books and getting books published, and they really don't think it's happenstance that their books are coming late, and the mail is, having delays, and there's always excuses why this and that just happened. So I'm just saying that because the date might have to change, but that's, as of today, that's what I'm striving for. That's what the plan is to have it out on that weekend. So the other thing is I also still need as many people as possible to go and subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I need 1,000 followers before I can continue to do like this live broadcast on YouTube. So please, if you're listening to this and you think the information is worthwhile, subscribe to my YouTube channel and tell a friend or two. Okay, so again, I had hardly anybody come in. Well, I should say, I'm thankful for those who did come in, but obviously something was wrong. I usually have a lot more. I don't know what exactly happened, why I didn't have any comments or anybody interacting, but we'll figure it out. We'll continue to work on it and get better. But for those who did come in, thank you. And for those who will get a chance to see this, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned. And I hope now you have the type of information that you can put this whole allergy thing in proper context. So until next time, please work hard on your health. Remember remember your health is not on your mind, and yes, your mind is on your health. And until next time, work hard, because your health is a product of diligence, dedication, and working hard. And I hope you all have a wonderful health journey or health maintenance program until the next time we talk. Thank you for tuning in to the Ultimate Wellness School.